Good evening, everybody. System Chalk here with the 88th episode of our House of Light run on YouTube, our first run through the expansion for Book of Hours. And I'm going to be wrapping up what we started in the last episode. We're only halfway through the day. But one of the biggest things that we're going to be working on is finding out where we're going for the rest of the Tree of Wisdoms. This does mean that for those of you that don't like the episodes where sort of there's extended pauses while I'm working things out, this may not be for you. But I'm going to try and I'm going to try and limit it to this episode here. I am, however, going to wait until we've leveled up Sacralamea, and then we'll kind of work out a skeleton. So the way I think I'm going to handle that, I have a few different skills that I'd like to see. I think I'm going to bring the Trist back in this case. I have a few skills that I'd like to see in certain places. And then what I'll be doing is I'll sort of work out, it's like, okay, so between, 2 and 6, let's say, I've got some empty slots that I need to fill in. And then what I can do there is sort of say, okay, I don't really have a good... So here's a good example. Like Snow Stories right now isn't assigned to anything. So if I say, okay, we're really short on something with like a decent amount of winter, that would be an example where I can say, let's try and get that a little bit closer to slot 5, because that will potentially unlock... Well, and of course, that's assuming that I have winter books that I need to read. But between those two conditions, that would be an argument for saying, let's start putting a bit more into Snow Stories as opposed to some of the other skills. Now, we've got a couple that have already hit sort of escape velocity. So Edicts Martial, Great Signs, and Great Scars are some examples of that. But part of what I'm doing right now is just sort of identifying those gaps that I want to fill in. And then I'm going to compare that. Sorry, you're going to hear some microphone banging for a bit. What I'm going to do is once I have an idea of those gaps, I'm going to sort of reference that against the different texts that I have to read, particularly the ones that I currently have access to without having to spend too much in terms of elements of the soul or memories. And then that should hopefully push me through the decision-making process a little bit more. And obviously the whole idea of using skills to try and get me an advantage during the salons, we're kind of past that now. We still need more, but I think we have enough to feel reasonably comfortable when people stop by and to be able to have a decent shot at getting the most out of any given salon. So with that in mind, what I will do, I'm going to focus a little bit more on just trying to get those things into the Tree of Wisdoms a bit faster. Okay, so the other thing I want to do is, I said I didn't want to consult too many spreadsheets, but in this case, this is a spreadsheet that I have on my desktop, or the one that I'm playing this session on, I mean. And this gives me an idea in terms of things that get me basically the things that get me metal, or so Horamachistry is an example. Metal will get me Horamachistry will get me metal or fet. So just making a note of those helps me decide. Okay. So I think probably for this one, if I recall correctly, I actually already worked out a couple of top tiers for these. So I'm pretty sure Great Signs and Great Scars is a Horamachistry skill, as is Edicts Martial. So you can easily see that these would go somewhere near the top. We haven't got Edicts Martial to level 9, but usually this is one that's pretty well suited to the top. So let's say that really what we need to work out here would be level 7 and down on Horamachistry. So, in fact, there's a decent argument to say that Sacralamea is one that I may want to actually put one last memory into. So the question is, do I have what it takes? Okay, we do have solutions and separations. 7 shards would be good to read. Okay. Looks like I'm coming up short on... Sorry, I shouldn't say that. Let's just see what we've got here. So this is noteworthy, although I believe we don't have the memories we'd need for that. Some transformations and liberations texts are noteworthy. Okay, interesting. I was under the impression I might have a little bit more Sacralamea-wise. Clearly, Origins of Hours is too much to expect right now. We're closer than before, but I still need to answer where I'm getting the remaining 10 from for the memories, and that is going to have to be at a desk. So, although, let's just take a minute to examine that, because we do have the Mazarine Fife. So, if I were to do something like... No, Vac's not going to help me here because it doesn't have Sky. The best we could offer for this right now would be Sacralamea. And then we'd have a element of the soul and a memory. So the funny thing about this is that with Foss, this would actually take us up to 10. And with a Didymos, this would actually take us up to 16. Interesting. So I wasn't thinking of Sacralamea as a top tier skill, but we actually have a reasonable shot at that. Okay, so let's I'm going to sketch this out. So for Horamachistry, let's say for the sake of argument, say Sacralamea is in position 7. So that would leave me, I think what I had written down was Anburian Lapidary, Inks of Containment, Inks of Power. Oh yes, door and wall is an option. All right, this gets a little more complicated. Okay, so one thing I've been thinking about here is Inks of Containment, because the fact that it helps with theoplasmic contamination sort of tells me I should be considering it more. However, yeah, you know what? I'm actually going to lock that in right now. When it is permitted, certain knowledge is forbidden to mortals unless it's wisely contained. This law is named Calyptra. The enforcement of this law is named Calyptra also. The 3 hours who enforce it share that name. They permit that knowledge to persist only in certain sanctioned places, and the most dangerous secrets must only be recorded in the inks called Incastum Terminale. Horamachistry teaches us Calyptra's importance. Okay, so the question now would be, of all the Horamachistry things, what do I want to put into... Like, what's going to go into 4 and 5? 6 and 7 can actually sort of resolve themselves. That could be the Sacralamea versus something else question. But at this point, I want to be asking, like, what skills am I going to put into place? And in fact, I should erase Inks of Containment. Okay. So I see here Sacrosolus Invicti, Enburian Lapidary, Sacrolamea, and Doran Wall. So the funny thing here is that Doran Wall feels like the sort of thing that could... So Enbury Lapdary's got Forge and Sky. And if I take a look at the thing that I have a surplus of, so we've got Cardia's Delights, which is Grail and Knock. So in theory, what I could do here, we could bring Doran Wall up. So that would get me to 4. Or theoretically, that would be the 4. And then I guess I would say that the Anbury and Lapidary goes up to 5, but then the question would be, do I actually have a credible path for that? Theoretically, we would do that through the remaining Sacra... Oh, yeah, no, okay, I'm seeing how this works out. So we move Doran Wall up to position 4. When we level up Sacrolamea to 7, we take 1 from the Origins of Hours, and then we put the rest into Anbury and Lapidary. Okay, this is an interesting idea. So let's say, for Horamachistry, we did Sacrolamea to 7, question mark in terms of 6, 5, and 4. So if we say Doran Wall goes to 4... So then the question would be, can I get Anbury and Lapidary up to 5? And then there would be Sacrosolus Invicti. Which, all told, because that one helps with curses, it's not terrible that that's higher. So yeah, let's say as a sort of a sketch... So Doran Wall goes to 4, Anbury and Lapidary to 5, Sacrosolus Invicti to 6, Sacrolamea to 7, Great Signs and Great Scars to 8, and Edicts Martial to 9. All right. So that, on its own, that actually gives me enough to work with. So much so, actually, I'm wondering if there's some sense in me trying to read Cardia's Delights. It's a little... late to be doing this, but on the other hand, we've got some progress on Doran Wall already. So let's go for this. Knock, a gate flung wide. I'm a match for this book. I'll confess I was expecting maybe a little bit more consideration, but I'm actually quite happy with this game plan here. Even if it is a bit late in the day. It does a lot with Silence This Man. This will also be quite helpful in leveling up the Doran Wall. I'm not expecting this to sort of crack the whole thing wide open. Dark and Pungent. But it at least gets me, it's kind of the right direction of travel for a couple things that I want. And then again, we can sort of pillage the library based on the skills that we're currently pursuing. Okay. The other thing that's nice is that as I pursue this strategy, so now that Inks of Containment is in place, regardless of where we go, like Sacrosolus Invicti, Doran Wall, Anbury and Lapidary, all of these now should be level 4 or higher. So if I get opportunities to level them up, I should be taking those. And that's one advantage of sort of working through the the tree like I'm doing right now, where we're sort of, at the very least, we're able to raise the floor on a subset of skills. He does a lot with silence, this man. So I think, well, I wasn't originally planning on making a Daidumos. It might not be a bad idea for me to work out a game plan about how I'll pursue that. The cat's claw carefully. Its mischievous thorns find ways through the thickest gloves. I don't know how I feel about making the vestibulum transitus a nursery, but cat's claw is rather good for making perunculate. And a bunch of grapes. We're probably just going to use those to make eggs, but we'll see how the day goes. Okay, so Tradisma Hyra doesn't quite cut it for me. I should maybe work out a destination for that too, but right now my focus is going to be on door and wall things. Well, door and wall things and related. Okay, Disciplines of the Hammer, that's going to be one that I want to pay attention to. Resurgences and Emergences should be a free spot for me to work with. Yep. Should also be thinking about how I want to use these remaining elements of the soul. So I don't think it would be a good idea for me to try to restore the... You know, I'm actually going to just sit on this for a bit. Because a lot of this is going to hinge on what we get from Cardia's Delights. Maybe 2 memories? I think 2. Cardia's Delights, the 3rd volume of Abbot Jeffrey's hypothetical theological dialogues in the Socratic mode. If Janus were an hour, Cardia might be counted among his names, but the world has never turned in such a manner, and so she is not. Jeffrey discusses the living signs, signs which change their shape and whose flexibility is part of what makes it identifiable. He gives as one example the paradox of the hinge and draws comparisons with the names called twins, who would be considered hours beyond the church. He hints that at the amethyst vessel, which can be sanctified by the great signs in the presence of Knock. So there's a pattern for us. Yeah, there's 2 lessons. Kind of why I wanted to have 2 metal, but of course that also assumes that I have the memories that I need. So there's something for our patterns. I just need the second. Okay, so we should be able to at least get the first bit of door and wall leveled up. I'm no expert, but I'm no dabbler either. So the next question would be, where do I get my level 3 for that? Because that's a forge and a knock. So I've got one of the 2. I could theoretically apply the occult scrap to it, but I'm still 1 short. Curious hunch as well. Actually, there's a better argument for me applying the curious hunch, seeing as we'll lose it in the salon. So if I get 1 more... Okay, ideally I'll get 1 more memory because I'd like to keep the occult scrap. But we'll see what Denzel gets me. Unless for some reason... Well, Okay. It's a little late, but let's do the rest and refreshment. It is spring, and the landlady has served me a slice of her stargazy pie with the pilchard heads poking cheekily through the hot crust. So if I apply the metal here, and for that, I guess I can get another pattern, really, so... Of course, anything I get from Denzel is a nice to have now. Again, a bit of a weird way of handling the day, but I'm not completely upset with how it turned out. Oh, the funny thing is I'm pursuing door and wall so much. We do have the road to Janus. Or the messenger awaiting her destination, for that matter. So if I can do Origins of Hours, I should... Oh, no, hang on. That's Forge, so... Oh, an Anbury and Lapdairy. Okay. I'm not convinced that we're going to be able to do these, but I should definitely pursue the Daidumos. Also, how's the... Yeah, we're going to lose the Shapt overnight, but I can live with that. Oh, brilliant. So if I wanted... Well, I can't level it up because I don't have an element of the soul, but... Better now. Alright. So I'll make the most of what we've got. The Raptures of Forculus, the first volume of Abbot Jeffrey's hypothetical theological debates in the Socratic mode. If Janus were an hour, Forculus might be counted among his names, but that door remains closed, and so Forculus is not. Jeffrey discusses the signs that mark doors, which might permit or forbid access to certain thoughts and dreams, speculating carefully on which of the sanctioned hours might teach or govern each sign. So losing a Shapt overnight is not that big of a deal. But we'll take the pattern, we'll take the foresight, we'll take the stolen secret. Another fruit plucked from knowledge's tree. And I don't think I have anything that I can keep overnight. No. But I'll get over it. So we have one more day left in the season. I have one more pot of ink to make for the invitation, so we'll use the Tryst for that right away. But there is going to be an interesting question in terms of what I try and get done over the course of the day. So let's start with our crafting. Okay. Some of this might hinge on the weather that I get. But if I wasn't reliant on weather, let's try to make something interesting. So if I do Sacralamea, a Faust, and a Mazarine Fife, so we're at 10. All right, so that makes the instrument. So that's not suitable for making higher level music. Now, presumably Bells and Braziers fixes that, but I need to employ a memory. So that would probably be the time that I wait and see. Well, okay, that's not entirely true. I could also take an awakened. Ooh, okay, yeah. Do I have an awakened feather? Now that doesn't let me use. I'm doubtful, but let's see. Okay. I'll take it. Conjure bright sky music. Bells and braziers with scholar level sky plus an instrument creates an ascendant harmony. Also, it's just nice to be able to use some of the stuff in the dumping ground. Alright, that's probably good that the clouds turned out like that then. So maybe the other question I should be asking at this point is there something that I can do? So for instance, with Path and Pilgrim, like, am I really that far down the path? Like, can I really not make a decision in terms of where things go inside of Birdsong? Maybe I do actually want to make a decision about where we put certain things on Path and Pilgrim. I could definitely see waiting on Rakshas, because I don't necessarily know what the what the plan looks like in terms of leveling up all the items. Actually, the funny thing is, with that rain, that would have been the perfect time for me to read that. Well, no, because then I would have two. Yeah, I don't know. I feel like we should probably be making some bolder moves in terms of getting these higher level ones, but again, there's no rule saying that I have to plow ahead on these ones. Okay. We've got the levels that we want for... Okay, so if Doran is supposed to be position 4, we've got that. So I am somewhat reluctant just because I know Doran Wall could theoretically go higher with some of my... like with some of the books that I have, but that could be said about literally everything. So let's just say we'll assign it here. It's also kind of nice because this gets us a fet. So what should not be? There is a prophecy of a shining city that mortals might build. There is a paradox that a city unbuilt can always be greater than one that exists. The bright arts teach this resolution, that the hours will always forbid the raising of that city, so that it will remain a great hope and a great traveling. So that's kind of nice in terms of exploration. Now, one of the most important ones here is this level 5. So if I do have the opportunity to level up Enbury and Lapidary, I should really take it. And again, this brings us back to looking at the library. I suppose the other thing that I would want to look at would be, so Ithistry, I'm actually just going to take a minute here and update my list. So Horamakistry should be starting at 5 now. Ithistry should be starting at 5. And I noted here that I was actually going to start it with Inks of Revelation, so if I have an opportunity to level that up, I'll take it. Illumination starts at 3. Now, this is an interesting one, because there's a few that I have in Illumination that I can work with. So I really should be kind of locking in some choices on that at this point. Now, Hushery, I seem to recall I was going to be putting Sharps in there as well as Snow Stories. So both of those should really be at level 5 at this point. But I think one of the biggest targets I'm looking for right now is actually the Iron Book. Because there's really... So I wanted to have that higher level forge, so clearly Disciplines of the Hammer would be a good candidate for that. And I think this is just sitting out in the open for us to work with. So let's read that one today. Although the resolution will likely be tomorrow. All right, Edge of Conquest. I can master this mystery, enough edge to match mystery edge. And this actually gives me a good reason to bring Denzel in. There's not that many edge memories for me to work with, but it's, again, it's the probability that I want more than anything. So we're at time. But what I'm going to do here is I'm going to write a couple of notes for my next entry. So level hammer. Prep salon. At least as much as I can. I guess we don't know who the guests are yet. And then here I want to be looking for any books that will help me with Anbury and Lapdary. Although there's still other candidates. So for instance, like maybe I don't want to level up Sacra Lamea. Maybe I just want to put the points into Resurgences and Emergences. I don't actually think I'd want to do that, but you know, it's an example in terms of some paths that I have. I think the biggest one right now is I'm just looking at a lot of the candidates here that clearly should be at higher levels, and I don't think they're real blockers right now, but I can see... Oh yeah, there's one other thing. Make Didumos. I'm not super confident we're going to be able to pull it off, but it's on my to-do list. But yeah, I actually think this is a slightly more productive way of working with the Tree of Wisdoms right now. I've got a somewhat well-defined target, and I think there's some obvious books that I can be reading to level up some of the components that I know I already need. And I think if I do that for a few more branches on the Tree of Wisdoms, I'm likely going to find some of the low-hanging fruit like Disciplines of the Hammer. And it's an indirect way of handling something I've wanted to do. So I've sort of talked about how I want to sort of consolidate all of these books. But if in the end I wind up, if I wind up doing that by just reading all of the books in the area, that still gets me the thing that I want. So we'll see. Again, there's definitely a few skills that I would prefer to have that I don't right now, but that may be resolved just simply by hosting the salon and getting lucky in a few of the skills that come out. Anyways, something that we will handle in the next episode. I'm probably going to take a break between these recordings, so the next one should be Thursday's episode. But if I need a little while to reacquaint myself, it's just because it's quite late and I want to do something other than play video games today. But thank you very much for watching. We'll see you in the next one. Take care.